I'm guessing that last night at the dinner table, you weren't talking about white supremacy and whiteness as a cultural norm. And I figured this morning as you were preparing to come here, the topics power, privilege, and oppression weren't on your mind. Now, I'm saying these things jokingly, but the reality is our society has socialized us to not raise critical questions about these topics. And in reality, they exacerbate the racial and socioeconomic inequities that we have in society that then perpetuate themselves in our educational system. Schools never have, nor do they currently prepare adults and young people to learn how to respect each other across cultural differences. Now, I've spent a lot of times in school as a student, a K-12 teacher, a teacher educator, and a researcher. And I've come to realize that racism, along with other forms of oppression, are still a major impediment to the academic underperformance of many students of color and poor students in our country. One of the things that I think prevents us from closing what are actually access and opportunity gaps is our inability to name issues of power as fundamental to the racial and cultural divide in this country. When we begin to examine power as part of the equation, we have a better understanding of how racism, oppression, and issues of cultural bias work to undermine the academic performance of students of color and low-income students. Now, all of this sounds pretty heavy and depressing, and nobody's laughing at what I'm saying. But the reality is, we have to examine these issues if we're going to close what we call achievement gaps in education. I want to share a story with you. I grew up in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s, and I went to what were considered racially desegregated schools. I had a first grade teacher who didn't recognize my academic potential. In fact, I talked with a real slow Southern drawl because I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, and I got bored with the homework and the schoolwork a lot of times. I would act out. And this teacher sent me to the principal's office several times that year. And in fact, she told my parents that I should be tested for special education. Well, my mama, being the mama she was, said, "You ain't testing my child for special education. In fact, if you want to test her for gifted and talented." So I took the test, and as a first grader, I scored on a fourth grade level. And it turns out that I skipped second grade and went from first to third. Now, why am I telling you this story? Why is it even important? Because I believe so many youth like myself have had these kinds of experiences. That teacher did not know what to do with my energy or my intellect. She had labeled me as a child in need of academic remediation when in fact I needed academic challenge. Now, I don't blame her solely for her behaviors. In fact, I think her teacher education program and her professional development as an in-service educator had not prepared her for these new experiences in the 70s of teaching Black youth. And in fact, her low level of critical awareness about issues of race, culture, and power in teaching and learning impeded her from providing me the resources I actually need. I work with school leaders and educators around the nation all the time, and I hear them say, we want to address issues of racial and socioeconomic differences in our classrooms, but there's no time, right? Or there are no safe spaces to do that. I'm afraid it'll be tied to my evaluation if my principal hears me talking about my biases and my stereotypes. What I've tried to do in my work with educators is engage them in a process of critical self-reflection, because I believe this gap in consciousness about these issues is one of the equity imperatives of our time. And it's through helping educators think through these difficult topics that we'll be able to better meet the needs of our most struggling students in society. In order to do this, though, we've got to move away from those diversity workshops that happen 1 or 2 times a year for teachers and school leaders. This has to be a process of embedded, continual critical self-reflection throughout the professional work of educators, and really all of us. In this work that I do with educators, I ask them to consider 3 questions. The first one is, how does my own social location, my race, my class, my gender, my religion shape my mindset about teaching and learning, the students that I'm serving, and the practices that I act out? And secondly, what is it more that I need to know about what I don't know around those things related to culture, power, and difference? Where can I learn that material? And thirdly, this process helps educators to then continually be thinking about, how can I be a more critically conscious leader and instructor? And in our country, where we have such gross racial inequities in education, along with socioeconomic inequities, I think teachers and school leaders have to be thinking about, how can I be a more critically race-conscious educator?